Discover the incredible twist, how a poor nurse transformed a lonely CEO's life on a blind date. Emily leaned against the nursing station, broadcasting her exhaustion with a single, deep sigh. The fluorescent lights above flickered intermittently, mirroring the chaos of her mind. Just that morning, she had witnessed the triumph of a heart beating back against the odds, and now, as she glanced at the clock, it ticked away, a countdown against her hapless ambitions. A doctor. That was who I wanted to be. The thought stung like a fresh wound each time she slipped into her scrubs. The bills loomed, and her 6-year-old Alex deserved more than a mother who was perpetually on the brink of burnout. Emily, you need a break, her coworker Tara nudged her shoulder, snapping her from her spiral of guilt. Tonight, go on that blind date. You deserve to feel human again. Tara meant well, but the notion of a high-powered CEO and clinking champagne glasses felt like an insult to her everyday grit. A stifling fog of reluctance clouded her mind, wrestling with the desire for escape. But what can I offer a man like that? The hiss of doubt echoed louder than ever. Even as a part of her longed for the night out, another part rebuked the idea. How could she juggle the expectations of a new relationship when Alex needed her, even more so now as he navigated that fragile world of childhood? As the sun dipped below the horizon, Emily reluctantly slipped into a dress that felt tight against her often forgotten skin, a semblance of identity she feared was lost. The upscale restaurant glimmered with wealth and prestige. Her heart raced. Was she out of place amongst glittering chandeliers and expertly prepared hors d'oeuvres? David arrived, charismatic and polished yet profoundly isolated. They exchanged cautious pleasantries, but deep down, Emily felt a strange connection on a surface level, perhaps drawn to the lingering sadness behind his charming facade. Yet the disparity of their lives pulsed between them, palpable and suffocating. When a nearby table snickered at her worn shoes, humiliation struck like a blow, a mirror reflecting her struggles back at her. She floundered, grappling with the shadows of judgment, feeling like a fiery phoenix forever trapped beneath the ashes of societal expectations. Anguish clawed at her chest as she stared into the distance, wrestling with the invisible chains binding her to her life. Why am I here? The silent question bore down heavy, caging her hopeful heart within her rigid ideals. David observed her closely, his demeanor shifting, seeming to understand. As they shared fractured moments of pain, his grief revealed its own tale, a life overshadowed by loss and power. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The night spiraled inward, emotions colliding with the constraints of wealth. Suddenly, a breeze of revelation rustled through Emily's thoughts, her grandmother's nursing home legacy, a looming inheritance fraught with expectations she had never considered. Would she inherit responsibility or freedom? Would David, trapped in his gilded cage of corporate ambition and familial loss, be the anchor or the wake-up call for her fears? The flicker of hope flickered, wavering against the uncertainty that filled the gaps of their conversation. In that moment, her body tensed as the world tilted on its axis, leaving everything she thought she knew suspended in a fragile state. Could she navigate through this junction of lives entwined yet wholly separate? The night hadn't reached its end, but Emily felt the awakening of a storm. Personal and daunting, where true fulfillment wrestled with survival, each moment bound to the other as they ventured into uncharted territory. The soft hum of orchestral music filled the air as the evening progressed, and with each passing second, Emily felt her heart race a little faster. Staring down at her plate of untouched food, she recognized that the night had morphed into more than just a simple outing. It had become a boiling cauldron of introspection. Shadows of doubt intertwined with hazy images of her childhood dreams. What did she want? Was it too late to catch up to that reflection of her aspirations? As laughter erupted from nearby guests, she felt the weight of her insecurities suffocating her. Am I even worthy of being here? The thought gnawed at her, but deep within, an ember of determination flickered. It was within her, deadened by years of sacrifice and struggle, but it was still alive. Emily's eyes darted toward David. Conversing with him was surprisingly easy despite the frequent pang of intimidation that shot through her. His truth resonated with her own, a shared recognition of wanting something more out of life. Emily, David's voice wrapped around her like a warm embrace, pulling her from her turmoil. What do you see for yourself in 5 years? The question, simple yet profound, threw her into a whirlwind of contemplation. In her mind's eye, she pictured a white coat, its fabric modest but symbolizing her commitment to her dream. She envisioned standing beside doctors, her hands steady as she savored the connections made during each patient's care. In that vision, Alex smiled proudly, knowing his mother fought through struggles to achieve her potential. I see a future where I'm not just surviving but thriving, she finally admitted, her voice steady. Where I can be the kind of mother he deserves. David studied her for a moment. In his gaze, she found validation. Then why not pursue it? You have the grit and compassion that breed success, and if I understand anything about success, it's that it often arises from taking leaps of faith. As the evening wore on, his words echoed in her mind, twisting and turning like a river flowing toward opportunity. Could she take that leap? Faces of her nursing colleagues filled her thoughts, all scraping through the daily grind while aiming for more. She had always trained herself to push those ambitions aside, fearing that they were out of reach. This moment felt transformative, nearly electric, and she sensed she stood on the precipice of change, yet, lurking in the background was the deeper issue of her financials, the bills that loomed larger with every passing day. How could she afford the cost of nursing school? The familiarity of that darkness almost enveloped her once more. But then she felt a flicker of resolve. Perhaps, with David's backing, should he choose to be more involved in her journey, she could shift her trajectory. Emily, David's voice drew her back again, this time, his tone was serious, almost solemn. I want to help you. You have something special, something that's needed in this world. What if before he could finish, the buzzing of her phone cut through the air like a knife? It flashed a reminder about Alex's school play, a cherry-tinged signal of her responsibilities crashing back into her consciousness. I'm sorry. I have to go, she blurted, urgency surging within her. He needs me. David's expression flickered with something incomprehensible, disappointment, perhaps. Or understanding. But she couldn't dwell on that. In an instant, she was standing, feeling a swell of regret mixed with the exhilaration of possibilities. As she hurriedly left the restaurant, the cool night air greeted her like an old friend, the crispness of reality washing over her. The whirlwind of decisions churned inside her, culminating in one undeniable thought: to rise towards her dreams, she might need to break a few barriers and confront her own fears. She stepped into the clarity of the moment and made her way home, but as she turned the corner, she couldn't shake the feeling that her journey had only just begun. What would the next step mean, and would she find the courage to reach out for the opportunities David had hinted at? Arriving at home, Emily paused, heart racing, not just from the night, but the tempest of choices dancing at the edge of her consciousness. A whisper nudged her, this is just the beginning. As she opened the door to her son's laughter, an unsettling question arose, one that begged for an answer. Was she ready to embrace her own power and let the world redefine her story? The glow of Alex's laughter enveloped Emily like a warm blanket, yet the contrast of her inner turmoil left her feeling exposed. As she stepped into their modest living room, she caught sight of her son throwing brightly colored building blocks into a pile. Each thud resonated like a question: how could she balance motherhood with her aspirations? The chaos in her home mirrored the whirlwind in her mind. Mommy! Alex exclaimed, his face lighting up as he spotted her. The simple joy radiating from him sparked a flicker of resolve deep within her. She needed to nurture him, but she also needed to nurture herself. Emily knelt beside Alex, her heart swelling as he offered her a block. In that moment, a flicker of clarity emerged. If she wanted to show him how to dream, she had to start dreaming herself. That night, while tucking Alex into bed, her mind drifted back to the conversation with David. His conviction that she possessed something special pierced her doubts. What was it that he saw in her? She'd buried her ambitions under layers of practicality for so long. As the darkness crept into the corners of her thoughts, she pushed back. It was time to consider a future beyond survival. After she kissed Alex goodnight, Emily sank into the old armchair in the corner of the room. The fabric was worn, frayed in places, much like her dreams. She pulled out her laptop, a portal to the realms she yearned to explore, and began to search for nursing programs. Her fingers hesitated above the keys. What if she couldn't afford it? Memories of rejection flooded her mind, failed applications for scholarships, loans that weighed heavily on her conscience, but the flutter of David's words pushed her. You have the grit. She inhaled, willing herself to envision a pathway rather than the walls that had confined her. Why not at least investigate? Grit had always been Emily's companion, a silent cheerleader through the years of late-night shifts and taxing responsibilities. With newfound audacity, she scoured financial aid options, optimism washing over her like a tide. As she explored the potential grants, her pulse quickened. Then she glanced at the bills tucked away in a messy drawer: grocery bills, rent dues, unexpected medical expenses. They once suffocated her spirit, but now they seemed like obstacles waiting to be navigated. After all, she had always prided herself on overcoming challenges. The universe had shifted ever so slightly with David's encouragement, and she wondered if it was time to have an honest conversation with him. Could he offer more than just words of support? Stepping firmly into her intent, she scheduled a meeting with him, her heart drumming with apprehension but also anticipation. Days turned into a week, and Emily's emotional landscape continued to change. As she settled into her routine, she found herself lifting weights literally and figuratively. Embracing self-care, she started early morning runs, vying for a balance between physical endurance and mental resilience. Each day felt like training for a race she had yet to enter, but a storm was brewing amidst her growing confidence. A cryptic message from David arrived, hinting at a meeting that could alter everything. "We need to talk about your future," it read, drumming involuntarily at the back of her mind with dread and curiosity. She didn't want to make assumptions, but his tone set off alarm bells. Preparing herself mentally, she replayed the multitude of scenarios repeatedly. Was he abandoning her in their shared vision? Or could this be the moment she needed to consolidate her path forward? With her breath caught in her throat, Emily unlocked the door to a new chapter. She stood at the intersection of fear and hope, beckoned by the shadows of uncertainty that loomed ahead. This was an inflection point, one that could either solidify her aspirations or hurl her toward new dilemmas she had yet to face. Today, as she filled her lungs with the crisp morning air, a haunting question lingered at the fringes of her consciousness. Would she have the courage to confront the unexpected, to rise and meet whatever David had to say about her uncertain future? Emily's heart raced as she sat at the small cafe table, her hands curling around the warm mug of coffee. The aroma was thick and inviting, but its comfort did little to ease the tension coiling in her stomach. She arrived early, needing the extra moments to mentally prepare for her meeting with David. It wasn't just a conversation, it felt like a reckoning. Her eyes flicked toward the cafe entrance, scanning for any familiar face. Anxiety wrestled with hope. How could one conversation warp the entire trajectory of her life? The thought alone sent a shiver down her spine. What if David's words were not a gentle push but a hard shove away from the dreams she had started to ignite? When the door swung open, admitting a rush of cool air, Emily blinked, her breath catching as David stepped in, eyes scanning the room until they landed on her. He approached with a smile that was both confident and warm. She stood abruptly, their handshake lingering, both of them aware of the silent stakes. "Thanks for meeting me," he said, sliding into the chair opposite her, the casualness masking the undercurrents of their discussion. "Of course," Emily started, but her voice faltered. The words seemed to hang heavy in the air between them. "I've been thinking a lot about our last conversation," David began, his tone shifting to something more serious. "You have a lot of potential, Emily. And I want to help you realize that." The directness of his statement sent a rush of warmth through her, but it was laced with dread. Was she setting herself up for disappointment? I appreciate that, really, but, what does that mean? What can you do? David leaned forward, his eyes intent. I've been working on a program to help individuals like you, those balancing personal responsibilities while pursuing their goals. But it's more than just support, it's mentorship. I see in you something inexpressible, and I want to help mold it, guide you through. A tightness gripped Emily's chest. For so long, she had struggled with the idea of relying on someone else. But what if it's not enough? What if I still fail? Failure isn't the end, he replied, his voice steady. It's part of your journey. And if you fail, I'll be here for you. Think of it as no-pressure growth. As his words sank in, Emily felt resentment bubbling up. Hadn't she always fought against that notion? She wanted more than mere guidance, she wanted independence, the ability to carve her own path. And what if I want to do this on my own? I need to know I can do this without your help. David held her gaze, his expression unyielding. And what if I told you that working together doesn't lessen your achievements? Sometimes, support can amplify what you're truly capable of. Emily glanced down at her coffee, the surface swirling with her thoughts. The idea of leaning into a partnership tugged at her sense of autonomy, yet it simultaneously flickered with promise. In that moment, she recognized a truth within herself: fear of relying on others was merely a form of self-sabotage. What do I need to do? She asked, her voice steadier now, confidence knitting itself into her resolve. David smiled, a glimmer of approval in his eyes. We'll start by mapping out your goals, creating a plan that suits both your ambitions and your responsibilities. But you have to trust this process. I'm willing to try, she replied, her mind racing with possibilities. As they spent the next hour discussing plans, her list of aspirations multiplying like takedown notes on a whiteboard, Emily began to see the contours of her dreams clearer than ever before. The mere act of expressing them out loud felt transformational, unearthing a sense of ownership and determination that had long lain dormant. Their meeting wrapped up, but David's final words lingered: just remember, you're not alone in this. I believe in you. The outside world greeted her with an invigorating mix of sunlight and shadows, yet Emily felt a surge within, a crest of hope challenging her deeply ingrained doubts. The path ahead seemed less daunting now, nudged into view by shared ambition, but with new dreams taking shape came a chilling thought. What if the trust she was building with David led her to confront deeper issues within herself that she wasn't yet prepared to face? Emily's newfound excitement collided with a sense of impending confrontation. What truths lay ahead in this mentorship that could challenge her very core? As she prepared to step into this new chapter of her life, the looming uncertainties felt palpable. Was she ready to break down the walls she had built, or would she let fear dictate her evolution? The question hung in the air, a tantalizing precursor to the journey that was just beginning. Emily awoke the next morning with the sun streaming through her window, illuminating her small apartment. The warmth was soothing, but her mind buzzed with the echoes of the previous day's conversations. A lingering question unsettled her: was she prepared to embrace vulnerability in this partnership with David? To lay bare her insecurities and dreams, knowing full well the risk of failure, she stretched, trying to shake off the restlessness that clung to her. Navigating her life, a balancing act of nursing shifts, personal obligations, and her emergent aspirations, had always felt like walking a tightrope. Now, with David's offer hanging over her like a double-edged sword, she sensed an uncharted gravity pulling her toward a reckoning with herself. As if responding to her inner turmoil, Emily found herself at her desk, a blank sheet of paper staring back as she mulled over her goals. What did she truly want? To find clarity, she closed her eyes. Images danced across her mind, moments of triumph while caring for patients, the spark of a training program she once dreamed of initiating, and the passion that ignited when she contributed to her community. Yet, tempered with these visions were daunting memories of past failures, projects abandoned, ambitions dimmed by downfalls. What would it mean to truly commit to the journey David was offering? The thought of stepping into the untested waters of mentorship terrified her. But a new resolve coalesced amidst the unease. She could not sidestep the potential for growth merely because the path was unclear. Taking a deep breath, she began writing, allowing her thoughts to flow unrestricted. I want to lead a health initiative that empowers individuals from underserved communities. I want to design programs that make healthcare accessible and relatable. With each pen stroke, the clarity of her ambitions grew, yet a shadow of doubt lingered. Could she pull such an endeavor off? Was she equipped to command both her nursing responsibilities and an initiative aimed at systemic change? The thought triggered a visceral reminder of her optimal performance in chaos, but this was different. This called for a level of leadership she had avoided, not out of incompetence but sheer avoidance of the potential for scrutiny. Would opening up to David mean exposing herself to criticism she had shielded herself from for too long? The day whirled by, filled with routine distractions and the predictable pulse of patient care. But behind her practiced exterior, the whirlwind of thoughts persisted. She vowed to embrace the mentorship model, yet the prospect of feedback set her on edge. How would she respond when David probed into her fears or delicately challenged her views on failure and independence? By the time her shift ended, exhaustion washed over her, but there was also a current of anticipation coursing through, urging her forward. As she left the hospital, Emily's phone pinged with a message from David, excited for our next meeting. Let us finalize your goals and discuss some next steps. A flutter stirred in the pit of her stomach. Was she ready for this? Was she prepared to unveil her goals and allow David to match them with practical strategies? The answer began to solidify as she stepped into her evening routine. She had spent too long shying away from the transformative power of collaboration. Perhaps what David offered wasn't merely a crutch, but a means to elevate her ambitions beyond the limits of her solitary attempts. With every decision she made to nurture her potential, the fear of vulnerability dulled, replaced by a sharpened sense of purpose. As she penned a response to David, something remarkable sparked within her, an awakening to the urgency of self-development. But what horrors of self-doubt might she need to face when she finally confronted her goals in that meeting? She pressed send, knowing that the next chapter would require confronting uncomfortable truths, and deep down, she felt both dread and exhilaration. What awaited her on this new path? As the reality of her decision settled in, she couldn't shake the sense that she stood at the brink of an evolution, one punctuated by moments she had long buried deep within. Tomorrow, she would take the leap and stand before David, prepared to unravel the labyrinth of her ambitions. But as the night deepened, another question began to emerge. Was she strong enough for the trials that lay ahead, or would the shadows of her past resurface to challenge her resolve once more? The familiar hum of her alarm clock jolted Emily awake, pulling her from another round of restless dreams woven with the insecurity and excitement swirling in her mind. She felt a peculiar blend of grit and grace within her. Sleep had done little to quell her resolve. Today was the day she would confront her ambitions under the probing gaze of David's mentorship. As she dressed, the fabric of her scrubs enveloped her like a second skin, both comforting and limiting. She gazed into the mirror, focusing on her reflection, trying to find the courage in her gaze. Was the woman in the mirror ready for this leap? She grasped the edge of the sink, taking in the notion that she had survived challenges before, and while her heart raced, it was with a determined rhythm now. The drive to the hospital felt endless. Each red light punctuated her thoughts, tempting her to retreat into old habits, avoid discomfort, maintain the status quo. But she clenched the steering wheel tighter, reminded of the commitment she had made to embrace vulnerability. The bustling corridors of the hospital greeted her like an old friend, yet today, everything felt charged with a new energy. As she prepared for her shift, she observed her colleagues moving purposefully, often oblivious to the internal struggles they too carried. Did they fear exposure as she did? Did they grapple with insecurities, doubts tugging at their sleeves like persistent shadows? Then, the moment arrived, her meeting with David. With every step toward his office, her heart thudded like a drum echoing in a cavernous space. The door loomed ahead, a barrier between her past and the uncertain future she was trying to embrace. She hesitated just long enough to take a steadying breath, then knocked lightly. "Come in." David's voice boomed warmly, shattering the silence. As she entered, Emily was met with an inviting smile, a spontaneous warmth settling over her like sunlight after a storm. The office was a reflection of David himself, organized yet overflowing with ideas and inspiration. She took a seat, feeling the weight of her aspirations pressing heavily against her chest, a tangible entity awaiting release. "Emily, I'm glad to see you." David leaned forward, his eyes glimmering with insight. "Let's talk about those goals of yours." Her words stumbled at first, hesitant and guarded, the familiar anxiety clawed at her. But as she spoke, weaving her dreams of healthcare accessibility and community empowerment into conversation, something shifted. With every articulation of her vision, she felt the shackles of self-doubt loosening. She was met with unwavering encouragement, David's responsiveness fueling her spirit, pushing her to delve deeper, but then, he leaned back, studying her. "What does success look like for you in this venture? And what fears are you carrying?" The loss of control felt like a tidal wave crashing down, exposing her vulnerabilities as if she were stripped bare in public. Suddenly, her voice faltered. Blinking back a tide of emotions, she realized these were the questions she had long avoided. Success feels like a program that connects people with the resources they need. A ripple effect of empowerment, she managed. The vulnerability in her confession sparked an unexpected energy within her. But the fear? What if I don't have the influence? What if I fail? David nodded, a knowing look suggesting that he had once shared those very concerns. "Emily, fear can be your greatest teacher. It shows you where you need to grow. Don't bury it, explore it." As she processed his wisdom, a spark of resilience ignited inside her, a flicker of courage she had thought extinguished long ago. What if the challenges weren't barriers but stepping stones? Could this fear evolve into insights guiding her path? The conversation continued, shifting from fears into actionable steps. With David's encouragement, her goals began to take form, each one grounded in her experiences, framed by her compassion. As they mapped out a strategy, the doubts that had once paralyzed her faded into a background hum, almost imperceptible amidst the vitality of newfound purpose. She smiled, buoyed by the collaborative energy of this alliance, but as the meeting drew to a close and Emily gathered her things, another question nagged at the edges of her mind: what would happen when reality hit? When she stepped out of the comforting confines of this mentorship and faced the gritty, chaotic world that awaited, as those thoughts swirled, she felt a familiar face from her past flicker at the edge of her consciousness, a remnant of unresolved conflicts. Was she truly ready to confront the defining moment of her journey, or would that specter return to shatter her resolve? That question loomed like a shadow over her, igniting a fresh sense of urgency. Would she be strong enough to fight for her future, or would the weight of her past pull her back into the depths of self-doubt? Emily stepped out of David's office, a sense of accomplishment blending with her simmering anxieties. The bustling hospital corridors felt different now. They surged with boisterous laughter and serious discussions, yet maintained that enigmatic layer of uncertainty that echoed her internal conflict. She navigated through the throngs of co-workers, her mind teetering on a precipice. What if her ambitions failed to take flight? She approached her first patient of the day, a young man recovering from surgery. As she prepared his medication, Emily's heart raced with an unexpected yearning to share her vision for accessible healthcare. She wanted to be the advocate she had just spoken about, not limited by her fears. "You know, it's important to connect with your resources," she said, holding his gaze. "There's a lot of help out there if you're willing to look for it." His eyes sparkled with curiosity. "You really believe that?" he asked, a hint of skepticism threading his voice. Emily hesitated, the weight of her fear pressing onto her chest again. "Yes, I do. It's what drives me," she replied, finding strength in her honesty. Maybe she could call upon the vulnerability that had become her armor, a tool to empower others. As she shared her thoughts, she noticed his expression soften, a flicker of hope sparking within him. In that moment, she realized how sharing her aspirations could foster connection, an unexpected ripple of change. Gradually, her interactions at the hospital shifted from perfunctory to personal. Each conversation became a delicate balance between her burgeoning confidence and the ever-present fear of exposure. While she educated colleagues about patient support structures, she also made genuine inquiries into their experiences, broadening her understanding of their struggles. Emily began recognizing hidden talents within herself. She could listen, empathize, and inspire dialogue. This newfound awareness became empowering, casting a light on what previously felt like insurmountable darkness, yet, the specter from her past wouldn't leave her alone. During a quiet moment by the nurse's station, flashes of a prior confrontation invaded her thoughts. It was a former colleague, Angela, whose dismissive remarks about Emily's aspirations felt like stabs of cold ice. In her mind's eye, her old self was cowering, craving validation and acceptance. Would Angela slip back into her life and dismantle this fragile growth? Would she become the voice of doubt that derailed her newfound momentum? Emily's hands trembled ever so slightly as she typed impatient notes, emotional waves crashing upon her like relentless tides. To confront someone from her past felt daunting. How had she allowed Angela's words to hold such power over her? It was an unsettling truth. David's earlier reminder echoed in her mind: fear can be your greatest teacher. Could this stumbling block symbolize an opportunity for growth instead of despair? With resolve, she decided she wouldn't let the past dictate her actions. Emily pulled out her phone during her break, scrolling through her contacts until she found Angela's number. Should she send a message? Would that open a door to confrontation or catharsis? Each collected breath fueled her introspection. The choice pulled her in two directions, her heart synchronizing to the chaos of her thoughts. Just as she deliberated pushing send, the hospital's emergency alarm blared through the air, jolting her from her contemplation. Instinct kicked in, sharpening her focus. The nearby room's emergency lights flickered erratically. Emily's training surged forward, banishing all doubt. She was on the verge of action. She took off toward the chaos, ready to respond and test her recent growth under real pressure. As she rushed down the corridor, her mind buzzed with anticipation, a thrilling blend of fear and determination. Would this emergency prove she was ready to claim her aspirations, or would it expose her fragility? The answer was just beyond the threshold ahead. As Emily burst through the doors into the emergency wing, the atmosphere struck her like a tangible force. The cacophony of urgent voices and equipment clashing echoed in her ears, demanding immediate action. Her confidence, recently polished through personal interactions, now felt like a fragile glass orb about to shatter under the pressure. She took a deep breath, grounding herself in the moment, letting her training take over. Vitals, now. A voice barked, piercing through the chaos. It was Dr. Stevens, a lead surgeon with a reputation for being tough but fair. Emily quickly assessed the scene. A patient lay unconscious on a stretcher, surrounded by frantic staff attending to him. The urgency of the situation amplified her adrenaline, sharpening her focus as she recollected the lessons she'd gathered from countless shifts. "Help me with the 4, Emily," Dr. Stevens instructed, his eyes fixated on the monitors displaying alarming data. Instinctively, she reached for the supplies, her hands steady but her heart racing. As she worked, she sensed the weight of her recent self-discovery. This was her moment to take charge, to assert the growth that had begun glimmering through her skepticism. Pushed to stabilize his blood pressure, a nurse called out, glancing over her shoulder at Emily. Without hesitation, she prepared the medication and handed it over, her movements fluid and assured. Each task emphasized her emerging confidence, reminding her that she had not only battlefield experience but a genuine desire to help. But as the team worked together seamlessly, the shadows of doubt flickered at the edges of her mind. Angela's voice whispered threateningly, a reminder of past failures. Wouldn't this chaotic scene expose the very cracks she was striving to overcome? Just as quickly, she forced those thoughts aside. This wasn't about her past, it was about saving a life. Her commitment to advocacy was solidifying. Step by step, once stabilizing measures were in place, the team stepped back momentarily, allowing the monitors to relay a heartbeat's rousing rhythm back to them. Emily's breath hitched as she absorbed the moment, the adrenaline receding, leaving pride in its wake. Empowerment surged through her. For the first time, she felt like she truly belonged among these high-stakes players, then, a notification popped up on her phone from Angela, a text sent during the chaos. Emily's heart sank, momentarily destabilized by the distraction. She knew she should erase the discomfort with action, yet, the past loomed larger than she anticipated. But what if this was the confrontation she needed to face? Not just to confront Angela, but to face the fragmented parts of herself that she had tucked away for too long. "Get ready for the vitals check again," someone called out, snapping her back into the current fray. Emily immediately returned to her task, each second stretching into sharp clarity. With each pulse, she felt not just her hands, but her spirit slowly aligning towards confidence that was no longer just a whisper but a roar. As the emergency subsided, she began to feel the urge to text Angela resurfacing, that unanswered question of whether confrontation would yield closure or another layer of struggle. Would she finally put her past to rest? Balancing between dual paths diverging before her, a heavy sense of anticipation weighed in the air as she considered the next step. In that moment of clarity, she realized that every decision she made was part of a larger narrative, a pathway she was defining for herself, one filled with challenges but ripe with potential. Just as she was about to lift her phone to text Angela, a screen flickered on nearby, showcasing a notification, an upcoming board meeting about new healthcare initiatives, the very vision she was embracing. The intersection of those two choices dawned on her. A pivotal moment awaited her. Was this the time to anchor her newfound determination by confronting her past, or would she instead forge ahead, seizing an opportunity that felt undeniably significant? In that charged silence, she understood one thing: her decision now could lead to an extraordinary shift in her life and others. The weight of the future rested in the delicate balance between action and hesitation. Where would she lean? Emily stood at the precipice of her choices, her heart still racing from the adrenaline of the emergency room. The text message from Angela played repeatedly in her mind, a veiled thread of old wounds resurfacing. But as the digital clock on the wall ticked down to 0, indicating the shift's conclusion, Emily recognized that the real battle lay ahead, not in text messages, but in tangible actions that could define her. With newfound determination, she turned her focus towards the upcoming board meeting. It felt monumental. Her past encounters with management felt distant, mere shadows of her former self. The very thought of presenting new healthcare initiatives to the board intimidated her, yet it invigorated her spirit, pushing her toward another horizon. No longer was she the hesitant woman haunted by doubt. Today, she was an advocate for real change. As she made her way out of the emergency wing, her mind buzzed with ideas and strategies. Every suggestion she could make for the meeting pulsed through her like an electric current. But with each exciting thought came the undertow of anxiety. What if the board rejected her ideas? Would they see her not as an innovative thinker but simply as a nurse, limited by titles rather than potential? With an internal resolve, she pushed through the doors into the corridor. Each step felt firm and purposeful. She had witnessed lives transformed and saved. Today, surely, she could advocate for systemic improvements. The shift in her perspective was palpable. Where she once felt like an imposter, she now recognized the invaluable insights she possessed. The trials had forged her voice, and the concerns of her past couldn't deter her from speaking her truth. Yet, the shadow of Angela loomed in her mind. What would Angela think of her ambitious proposals? The hostility between them had manifested so many unresolved feelings. Still, hadn't Emily just proven her ability to overcome? Perhaps confronting Angela was part of the larger picture of breaking free from that tether, a chance to reclaim not just her confidence, but also her narrative. At the nurse's station, Emily picked up a stack of reports, reviewing the data she might need for the meeting. As she sorted through statistics on patient care outcomes, her focus sharpened. This was the language of change, and she became acutely aware that her role wasn't just about immediate patient care, it was about broader reform. The opportunity to address larger systemic issues invigorated her. Hours passed in blurs of paperwork and careful preparation. As she wrapped up her notes, she heard a voice behind her. "You're quiet today," Dr. Stevens remarked, stepping into the room. His presence was commanding yet approachable, an inadvertent guide through the maze of medical bureaucracy. "I've been thinking about the board meeting," Emily confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. He leaned against the doorframe, crossing his arms. "What's the plan?" Emily's heart raced again, not from fear, but anticipation. A spark ignited. "I want to present the data supporting a new initiative focused on streamlined patient care. We need more than protocols, we need a cultural shift towards advocacy." Dr. Stevens seemed to study her. "And why does that matter to you?" The question hung in the air, and something about it lanced through her defenses. "Because it's not just about me proving myself anymore," she declared, finding a sense of clarity she had never known. "It's about others, about creating a system where healthcare isn't limited by past failures. I want to be a part of that change." His expression softened, perhaps recognizing the evolution within her. "Then go in there and advocate. This system needs more voices like yours." As he turned to leave, Emily felt a rush of affirmation. She needed a strategy not only for the board but for Angela as well. The decisions weighed on her, but clarity began to crystallize. The time had come to embrace confrontation with open arms, be it with her past or the critical stakeholders of her future. Stepping towards the meeting room. Resolute, fate intertwined with her professional ascent. She had unfinished business, both with Angela and the outdated systems that held potential back. The convergence of these challenges filled her with a heady mix of fear and exhilaration. Would she find the courage to step fully into her power and address her past while pursuing the imperative future laid out before her? The stakes were high, but so were the possibilities. The moment had come to face everything she had once sidled away from. Change awaited, but would she embrace it? Emily stood at the entrance of the boardroom, her heart racing with anticipation. The polished wood table gleamed under the bright lights, each seat representing a unique opportunity to share her vision for substantial change in healthcare. This was her moment, not just for herself but for everyone who had ever felt voiceless in a system that often overlooked their needs. Today, she would not only advocate for her ideas but also confront the remnants of doubt that began to surface in her mind, especially those instilled by Angela. As the meeting commenced, Emily felt a wave of nervousness wash over her. She glimpsed the faces around the table, the seasoned board members who defined the path forward for the institution. But with each passing second, she embraced the determination that had ignited within her. She had logged countless hours of work, and her transformation wasn't merely happening in isolation, it was coming to fruition in front of a captive audience. "Thank you all for being here today," she began, her voice steady. "I am here to propose a healthcare initiative that focuses not just on patient care but on empowering communities. The crux of my proposal stems from the belief that healthcare should be accessible and equitable for everyone." She projected a presentation filled with compelling data and heartfelt stories, real accounts from patients she had cared for. Every statistic reinforced her vision, each anecdote painted a picture of the impact she hoped to create. As she progressed through her slides, the nervousness transformed into a powerful command for attention, one that resonated deeply with her audience. Imagine a system where individuals from underserved communities receive not only medical treatment but also access to resources that foster overall wellness, she continued, gauging the reactions around the room. There were nods of appreciation, and she felt the walls that had once confined her aspirations begin to crumble. Every single one of us knows a person or a family that could have thrived if only given the opportunity. I want to change that fate. As she fielded questions, her confidence grew exponentially. David's belief in her had become a cornerstone for her newfound perspective. The realization solidified that mentorship was not about stunting her independence, it was about sharpening her focus and amplifying her potential. Each interaction fueled her resolve, allowing her to delve deeper into the complexities of the initiative, articulate why it mattered, and reveal actionable plans for implementation. After completing her presentation, a warm sense of accomplishment flowed through Emily. The board members expressed appreciation and excitement, sparking a lively discussion about next steps. For the first time in her career, Emily was not relegated to the periphery, she was at the center of it all, rising as a leader. When the meeting concluded, and her colleagues began to disperse, the lingering energy of collaboration and validation hung in the air. Emily's heart swelled. She had articulated the importance of her vision, pushing through a barrier she had previously associated with fear, but there lingered one final confrontation. As she began to exit the boardroom, she caught Angela's eye, and instinctively, old fears rushed forward, threatening to overshadow her triumph. But then, a wave of resolve washed over her. She recognized that true achievement meant confronting not just external skeptics but those inner voices of self-doubt as well. "Angela," Emily called out, her voice firm but composed. "Can we talk?" Angela hesitated. Emily prepared for a myriad of responses but pushed through anyway. "I wanted to address some things between us. I've learned that I can't let others dictate my worth or my aspirations. I am committed to making a change into who I am becoming, regardless of past interactions." A moment of silence hung, the air thick with unspoken words. Angela finally softened her expression. "I didn't realize how those conversations affected you, Emily." "I'm sorry." Emily felt a profound weight lift from her shoulders. This moment was pivotal not just for their relationship but as a testament to her individual growth. She had transformed confrontation from a burden into an opportunity for closure, a reflective understanding, and importantly, a step toward healing. As Emily stepped out of the room, the sunlight basking upon her recalibrated spirit, she knew she had reclaimed her narrative. She had forged a path where clarity and confidence now triumphed over doubt. In that moment of completion, each thought welcomed her into a profound acknowledgement of her strength. She had conversed her way into professional recognition, demonstrated remarkable growth in her aspirations, and confronted significant relationships, all while positioning herself as an agent of change. Emily felt empowered and ready to embrace the future she had envisioned for herself and those she sought to help. This was not merely the end of a chapter, it was the confirmation of her transformation, a recalibrated identity, now anchored in solid confidence and unmistakable competence. Don't wait even one more second. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, and comment your reactions and theories about the ending. But most importantly, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Show your support for personal overcoming stories. Let's spread the power of change.